Hollywood, to the mayor's office, and now, behind the mic at KXEX, this is the Alan Autry Show. No retreat.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Everybody grabbing out there. Nobody. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
So 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Free at last.
To the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX.
And welcome to Alan Autry, No Retreat. This is old Alan Autry, as always, so honored and humbled to have you with us today. I'm flying solo. No, not so low that you can't see me like some of you are wishing. Or so low you can't hear me, as many more wish was the case. But it's such an honor and so humbling to be with you, and I don't take it for granted. One day that I get behind this mic, I know it's not infinite. Nothing is infinite in life. There's a finite number of times that I will have the blessing to get into this chair at KXEX Studios and work with my good friend Guillermo Marino and our buddy producer Phil will be working with us today, and Larry Powell, Bob Leone, and most importantly, you. Whether it be on the radio, social media, so many ways to log into this sucker. And again, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spreading the word, because our audience is growing in all of those areas, and just so happy to and honored to have you as part of Autry's Army, because Autry's Army is you. You're the most important part of Autry's Army. I'm just a 71-year-old man who got a calling from God, got behind the mic, and just trying not to screw it up. And I pretty much do a little bit of that every day by speaking my mind nowadays. But those of you who've been with us for a couple of years now, we got kind of a bond. We know that we made a promise. I made a promise to you that I would never knowingly tell you an untruth. I would tell you with, hey, this is what I know for sure, and there's very little, unfortunately, in life that we know for sure. Ben Franklin said the only sure things are death and taxes. Well, I'd add the other thing, that Jesus is coming. So there's 3 things for sure. I would not make it a politically poisoned show. I have my political beliefs. I have strong political beliefs that rub some people the wrong way, but I also believe that we are a family here in this country, and we have to learn to not only get along and get together and stay together with differing beliefs. We have to learn to work together. Number one, to preserve freedom. You thought these old-style attacks on freedom was a thing of the past, where you would just mobilize old-school armies and roll into another country. Well, we saw it happen for all you millennials out there and Generation Z who thought those days had passed, that the only place you could watch that was Fantasyland on Game of Thrones. Well, the real-life Game of Thrones is playing out over there in Eastern Europe in the war in Ukraine. It followed up by the Middle East, where you have a really medieval mentality heading it's not a country, Gaza, but a territory trying to be a country, several million people there, and have them attack in the way they did and do just barbaric things. It's still out there. So I'll speak my mind. I'm not saying for you got to believe it, or, if you disagree with me, I hope you don't walk away from the show, because I will promise you this. It won't be from a politically poisoned perspective that I give you a belief. It'll be from a principle that I hold dear, the way I was raised. My faith guides me in everything that I do. So if you don't believe in God, I probably won't ever make a lick of sense to you. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but if you're an atheist and you have your ideas about me, because I am totally 100% believe that there's a God, and that God had a son called Jesus Christ, And he came to die for our sins. He did die for our sins. And if you confess him as your Lord and Savior, you get to be in heaven forever with him, with a body that will never grow old, never wear out, never get sick again. And that I've bought into that, mind, body, and soul. And some of you out there, my less believing friends and atheists, may think I'm a fool, but that's your prerogative. One day we'll find out who was right. And you're going to pray for me, I guess, that I get enlightened and shuck my faith and don't believe, and that's your right to do so. I'll believe and pray that I'll continue to believe, and I'll pray that you find God sometime in your life. Something will happen that will spark something in your heart that will allow you to at least give Jesus a chance in your life. I pray for that every night. And my point is, too, though I want to reemphasize it, that if you share my faith, don't share my faith, have no faith at all, you're still welcome on this show, to watch this show. Because I'm never going to demean you, insult you. Jesus never did that. He pointed out the truth, which people took the wrong way sometimes and got infuriated and to the point where they crucified him. And I guess if you express your faith too much, you can get a semblance of being crucified. They call it being canceled. But, hey, that's a small price compared to what our Savior went through, the crucifixion. So you lose a job for expressing your belief. You get canceled or your reputation smeared where you're not welcome at certain parties anymore or situation because of your faith. Not only do I hope that you'll learn to deal with that, I'm still working on that. As I've been X'd out of parties and been canceled from things, I'm working on doing what Paul said, which is very difficult, is to not only accept it, but be happy. He says, when you get persecuted, be joyful. If you get persecuted for following the Lord, be joyful. I still got a little problem. I know that's where I want to be. I know I'm not there, but thank God I ain't who I used to be back in my football days and early Hollywood days. And so anyway, I wanted to pass that on to you here as we go into, somebody mentioned, I think we're going into our third year. And we may be smaller in number when you're talking about comparison to the internet. But you know what? A whole lot of little bits can come together and do some really big things. I mean, it's, some of the, it's a bad analogy, but, these forest fires that burn up entire forests started out with a little tiny flame. So I kind of flip that, the value of that. Certainly don't want to cause death and destruction with the flame that you start. Hopefully you can ignite the flame of hope and love with your voice that God has given you. And you at home right now have a voice. It might be with one person, maybe your grandchild or your child or a friend. You all got this thing right here, this phone. And for those on radio, I'm holding up a cell phone. Most of y'all you have. And then some of you have a computer. When a spirit moves you to just call and check in on somebody, do it. Because what you've done, you've fulfilled the Great Commission. You've done God's work. Well, I'm not getting recognized for it. It doesn't matter. You're getting recognized by the only one that matters. You play for an audience of one, God. Not to get your name in the newspapers and splattered everywhere like Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. And nothing against them. They'll have a big platform there. What are they going to do with it? We'll see. But you have very meaningful work to do, and it can be very simple. You go to the grocery store and you see the clerk, ringing up your groceries, and you just kind of notice because you're in the moment, and you kind of notice that he or she has a little worried look on their face, or just a look of a troubling look. We've seen it. You can kind of read people. And simply by saying, hey, I just want to thank you for working. I try to do this on Christmas Eve, Thanksgiving, Christmas Day when the stores stay open, that I thank the sales clerks. Because I know they're getting double time, but it's Christmas, it's Thanksgiving, it's a holiday. And I would say, thank you for working, and keeping the stores open. And appreciate what you do. And I've never seen a time where they didn't, to some degree, light up. You see a change. And many times they look at you right now and go, well, thank you. That really meant a lot to me. So you can do God's work. Again, this whole little rift, I hadn't planned on going that long on the opening, but I'm sure glad I did. But started with my appreciation and thankfulness to you, the listeners and the viewers that have, and I don't care. The old world can come down on folks that talk faith and take unpopular stances in the middle of political chaos, and they just look for the low-hanging fruit that doesn't move too fast. And I think I'm that, because I'll speak my mind, and I don't move too fast anymore. You want to cancel me, I'm a pretty easy target. And I don't care if we're down to 1, 2 viewers, what 1 or 2 viewers we're going to be, what a team we're going to be for the Lord, and keep telling the truth and the way we see it. And yours may differ, as I said, than mine. That's okay. All right? That's what we're trying to preserve. That's what liberty's all about, to be able to reserve the right to say what you want to whomever you want to. It might be in bad taste, but, places where you criticize the king or you criticize the so-called prime minister, certainly in countries where you have the leader of the country referred to as the supreme ruler, you say something about those folks and you get into a lot of trouble. So we at this point, you can still get in trouble for speaking your mind, but they don't behead you if you don't have my wife was wearing a beautiful hat for Valentine's Day the other day, and she's not in Iran where if she wore that hat wrong, she'd be yanked in by the morality police and perhaps die at the police station, which happened to a young lady over in Iran. We don't have to put up for that. But how quickly that could change. Seriously, Ronald Reagan said it. I believe he may have quoted it for somebody else. But it's so true. It's chilling, but it's true. He says freedom is only one generation from being lost. And I'm speaking to a lot of the boomers out there. We're getting up there. We're getting along in the tooth. And we didn't do a lot of things right. I don't think we should be blamed for everything. We were raised by the World War II generation, in many ways the greatest generation, but even they blushed when called that, because you'd never hear a World War II generation individual refer to them as that. My mom was a Rosie the Riveter during World War II, but she never referred to herself as the greatest generation, because that's where the humbleness comes in. But we didn't do what we were supposed to do. We didn't discipline our kids like we should have. We felt that discipline was, we came up with things like timeout. We got in trouble. I mean, if I would have sassed my mom and my dad would have put me in timeout, okay, you sassed your mama. Now go to your room. Yeah, I mean, what? I just get to go to my room, hang out, and got my baseball cards in there I can go through. Got a lot of stuff I can do in my room. What kind of punishment is that? And I know I just rubbed some people the wrong way. Am I saying give spankings like I did, like I got? And here we go. I get me canceled. I say yes. I think when you stop to, spare the rod, spoil the child, and I tell you there's a big difference, and you all who got spankings, a lot of our boomer generation can relate to this. Some of you, the parents went over the line and you got beatings. My mom got a beating from my grandpa. That's no good. That does the reverse. It usually just, it may put a Band-Aid on some behavior for a little while, but there's that built-up resentment, and you wind up raising someone who will take out that razor strap and whip about 3 or 4 lashes too many. I got whooped with Mama's hand. I got like 5 whoopings. And when I was about 9 or 10, I got the belt. And as I look back, there probably was a couple of more, but there's at least 5 spankings that I got. And I told my mom when I was heading off to college, I said, Mama, remember those spankings you gave me? And she hated it. The old thing that this hurts me more than it does you, son. She didn't have to say that, but I knew she was. Tears in her eyes when she would give me a spanking. And I never understood that. I always felt that bad about it. Why'd you do it? I was in my little mind at 10, 11 years old. But I said, you remember those spankings? She says, yes, I do, son. And I'm sorry. I said, no. I don't want you to be sorry. As I get ready to head off to college, I want to thank you, because I'm thankful for every one of those spankings I remember, because I deserved it. I was in teenage, and my last one, I think I was 13. And I really just badmouthed her, and I won't get into details. But she popped me. She slapped me across the face. And I was almost 14. I mean, I was a grown teenager. And I'd gone from my mom being able to take me if it came down to like blows, which to a teenager who physically could have done damage to the mother. And I was sassing her big time, and she was driving. She picked me up from practice, basketball practice. She popped me, and I tell you, the old saying, knock some sense into me, it knocked some sense into me. I really got it. There's certain lines you don't draw, you don't cross in terms of respect. Now, I know that's a controversial subject. People are going to hear that know me, going to say, Alan, dang, God, that's a little too far. Are you advocating that a parent slap their kid across the face? I said, if they're my mom or were like my mom and did it the way my mom did it, and a kid saying what he was saying, yes. If the other stuff doesn't work, I'm not advocating for just indiscriminate fistfights with sons and fathers, but I just can't sit here and tell you that I believe that the way our generation was disciplined, by and large, was not right or was a failure. But I will say that us as boomers, when we started to stop, spanking our kids, stop having that consequence as part of the discipline package, and we tried to replace it with timeouts or reasoning, we lose reality, and I'm against that. I think it was a disservice to our kids. And I tell you, you want to go down, might as well go down the path even further, And you guys out there my age and younger, you physically grab your kid or whatever now, boy, they'll call CPS and they'll come and take a parent in. But there's a period of a young man's life. I'm not going to make a broad blanket statement of all young boys, teen boys, but a lot of them. Most of them that I grew up with, from like 13 to 17, 18, with their father. A lot of times we did a lot of foolish things, during that time, because they've proven that judgment in a young kid's life is at its lowest during their teen years. And I believe that. Make stupid mistakes. Because judgment in our brain, the part of the brain that controls judgment, is not fully developed by a long shot. But during that time, from like 13 to 18, the reason I didn't do some of the really, really stupid, idiotic stuff, some of it would have put myself in danger and others in danger. The reason I didn't do it, and the reason I didn't say some things in situations to coaches and teachers and my mother, is a little bit of fear of what my dad would do. I really believe fathers should have, you talk about the fear of God, there should be a healthy fear of a loving father, that especially when you're a teen. The possibility that if you pop your mom and you sass people and you've been given a warning and another warning, and my deal was the third time, you get the third time, just being grabbed by the scruff of the neck, thrown up against the wall, and say, if you do that again, it's not going to be a good ending for you today, son. It works. It worked with me. Dad only had to do it once. But knowing that was there helped me. So he's up in heaven now. One of these days I'm going to be, because I never told him this. I told my mom, thank you for this, because my dad died when I was 21. When I get to heaven, one of the first people I'm going to seek out, because he accepted Jesus as his Lord and Savior late in life. While he was dying, actually, the last couple of weeks, the preacher told me he accepted Jesus. So that was such a relief to me. I'm going to find him, and I'm going to hug him. And I don't know if God's going to give us remembrances of down here or not, but if he does, I'm going to give him a big old hug and thank him for grabbing me, looking me right in the eye, and show me what a father has to do sometimes with unruly teens. Because I think if we had fathers like that and they were allowed to be a father, you wouldn't see a quarter of the gang violence. You wouldn't see the abuse. This whole theory that if a father has to get physical with a son to get control of him, that's going to make that kid more violent, when it's exactly the opposite. Because the kid finds out the consequences of that in many, many cases. When you have mental health issues with the kids, it's a different story, I guess, but you get my point. So I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow after saying that, but I promised you that I would just give you my truth the way I see it, and I think we have really, as boomers, let the millennials down and Generation Z down to a great degree. And we're going to talk some, maybe today and certainly next week, on areas that I don't think the boomers have let the generation down. In fact, that I think, fellow boomers have done pretty well in setting an example. But we'll get to that tomorrow. Okay, let's get to some headlines. Let me take a little swaller here, as they say in Covington, Georgia. Oh, announcement. I promised you the other day I got an announcement. I don't know if I told you any of the details or not, but we got a call from 911 Lone Star. It's Rob Lowe's series going into its 7th season. I did a guest episode last year, and there was talk about bringing my character back for 1, 2, 3, whatever shows, play a old Texas Ranger. Obviously, I'm not going to play a young Texas Ranger. That would require too much makeup. I don't think they have makeup. They got AI. They could de-age me a little bit. But anyway, they made the call. It looks like I'm going to do the first episode there. It may turn into more. I shoot the episode March 4th, so I'm going to try to broadcast from the set, find some way to zoom in with Guillermo and kind of keep you informed of what's going on that. Maybe you get a little kick out of that. Okay, tough news out of Kansas City. Kansas City Chiefs, the good news, Kansas City Chiefs, if you're a Chief fan. Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl, had their traditional parade. Towards the end of that parade, if you haven't heard already, probably have, shots were fired. And as the last I heard, there was 1 dead, 21 injured, and I think 6 or 7 critically injured. So we hope there's no more loss of life, but it could happen. And initially when I heard all the details that were made available, which were not many, but I think they were very telling, it didn't sound like a terrorist attack at all. For this reason, 2 people were running, okay, that was away. That really doesn't happen. They usually stay there and take, especially with so many people around. It just didn't seem like a tactic that would be tied to Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, Hamas, or anything like that. And especially when I heard that one of the guys, because they tackled 2 of the assailants, or the participants in the shooting, and one of them had his jaw blown off. So right then I said, this seems like an altercation, either between people that don't like each other, clans or gangs, or something personal going on. And the last I heard, that's where it's leaning, that this was some kind of grudge battle that broke out. And again, as always, it's, thoughts, prayers go to the families, people that were wounded. They're just innocent bystanders wounded. And for these kids that participated, hopefully this will be the rock bottom for them to help them turn their life around. And it's sad thing. Again, it starts ends, predictable. Oh, if you had a gun control, this. Let me tell you, folks, you can have gun control everywhere. They have gun control in Chicago. You can't own a gun in Chicago, yet it leads the nation in murders every year. You can't own a gun. You know, San Francisco, you've got the gun violence. New York City, some of the toughest gun laws. Well, just don't make guns available. All you're going to do is open up a big market for guns. They tried it with prohibition. I guess, you know, the intentions were good, you know, because that prohibition back in the days to ban alcohol was brought forth by women. And what it was is the men were getting drunk and coming home and being abusive. And it got so bad that the women bound together and started that campaign to make alcohol illegal. You know, you can't do that. Well, if you're a woman that's been abused, like my mom was, by my drunk father, there's reasons. You could see why they would want to do that. I'm not saying you agree with it, but you got to be able to say, I understand how you could want to get a amendment like that. Well, they got it. But it did not stop the flow of alcohol. The bootlegging started. And now with the global economy, with Joe Biden's open border, guns will just be even more prevalent. It'll be shipped across there. You can make guns now at home yourself. It's just not going to work. The best we can hope for is in terms of real terror. This activity here, I don't know how you prevent that because they're going to get guns. There's more guns in this country than people. And people say, well, just confiscate it. Easier said than done. I don't think it can be done. But the most you could hope for, and this is doable, is folks that have a history of having mental health issues, of which my heart goes out to them. They should be able to get treatment, be encouraged to go to treatment. And in some cases, like the homeless, be mandated to go get some treatment. Get off of those dangerous street drugs. Because the reason a lot of the homeless take street drugs, alcohol, amphetamines, and everything is stop those voices in their head. And you can get them off of that and onto the good drugs like lithium and Vilify, whole list of other psychotropic drugs that will stop those voices and give the homeless individual a chance to make it. I'm all for that, for those kind of things. But if someone clearly shows that they're a threat to themselves and others by primarily their words, because there's an interesting phenomena going on here with these, especially the terrorists and some of the gang members. As this story unfolds in Kansas City, we'll find out what violent demographic that those gun people came from that did the shooting. But we don't know everything yet, so I'm not going to speak on that. But this whole thing of gun control, of just taking confiscation of guns for everybody. You're not going to do that because you mean taking the guns away from the two off-duty officers at Lakewood Church in Houston that brought down the killer, the terrorist killer, the lady who came in with her 7-year-old son. How tragic is that? Bless his heart. Oh, my goodness. I know he's in heaven now. If they wouldn't have had guns, how many would she have killed? You had a whole packed church. So you'd say, for in the spirit of equity, nobody gets guns. That's what's wrong with equity. Everybody has to be the same. No, if you're law-abiding and you don't have a record and you have shown to be a responsible human being, you should be able to carry a gun to protect yourself. Okay? That's not who's doing the shooting. What we're seeing predominantly are people with severe mental health issues. Now get this. Here's the deal. And here's what I would support. I don't know exactly what it would look like, but I would say go down this lane. And that is when someone demonstrates clear mental health issues that tilt towards a possible violent behavior, that needs to be engaged fully. And that person, if deemed not mentally strong enough, or the expert, so to speak, who examined them, and they said, well, you mean force them? You darn right. If you put it on social media, I look at that as a cry for help. Because so many, including this latest shooter in Lakewood, who was a woman who's dual, sometimes she feels like a woman, sometimes a man type thing, and on the stock of her gun it had Palestine written. So I don't know if 2 + 2 of that is 4. We don't know yet. So just those things. But we do know that there's an increasing number of trans individuals who are becoming extremely violent. The one that went into the gay club, I think in Florida, was a trans individual who had posted stuff that you could look at and say, this makes me uneasy. And mentioning so-and-so, they wish they were dead, or I'm in a dark place. I don't know what I'm going to do. Bang. That's enough to intervene. Well, how about individual rights? No, okay. Like Thomas Sowell said, life is not always win, lose. It's trade-offs. That personal liberty to post something like that with nobody following up on that saying, hey, you need help, I'm willing to say that's not really the civil liberties that our forefathers talked about. Our forefathers are no more going to put an axe or a bow and arrow or a gun into a mad person's hand than we should today. And I think you should be able to infer that in the Constitution and not get rid of the Second Amendment, which clearly was meant for law-abiding people who would responsibly use that weapon to either feed themselves, provide food, or to protect themselves in a very dangerous world. So this individual in Kansas City, apparently, not Kansas City, in Lakewood Church, Joel Osteen's church, had something online, had some manifesto. So it's becoming a trend. So just think if you were able to intervene just in those couple, there was a couple of more that happened recently with clear mental health issues once it was done, and making sure that deadly weapons, I'm even talking about not just guns. If you're posting stuff like that, you shouldn't be allowed to have a sharp hunting knife. A steak knife to use at your house is plenty. Or bow and arrow, whatever. Any deadly weapon that could be used to take somebody's life, you shouldn't be able to have if you've expressed your fantasy or your dark place that indicates that you could go there on a particular day. You could have a bad day and go there. And again, that's going to get me in trouble with some folks on the right. But, there comes a time where that's one good thing about getting older. You don't really think much about when you have a thought, it's coming from your heart, and you feel that it should be said, you feel you should make it known in the conversation privately in your home or on a radio station like this. You don't worry about, whose party you're going to be, party list is going to cross you off the list, or, what this little group is going to be saying about you or that little group is going to be saying about you. I know every day, I've said it before, I put my job on the line as an actor every time I just speak my mind. It's still just surprising and shocking to me that I got the call for 911 Lone Star. Still waiting on call. I may do Tulsa King. Did a guest spot on that. They just found out that's going to be shot in Atlanta, not in Oklahoma anymore. So on that, and I'm not trying to play some, hey, dig me, ain't I brave, John Wayne. Hey, Bob, I like making movies. It's just all I know how to do. What am I going to do? Study to be an accountant? By the time I get that, I make 75, get a degree. What am I going to do? Go herd cattle out of John Harris's ranch? I can't. Still, it hurts to ride a horse now. I'm acting. But I'm going to write a couple of books, maybe writing. That's not hard on the old body. But I got my workout out today. I hope you did too. Keep that workout as long as you can do it. Okay. But again, our prayers go out to the folks that were injured, and as I said, the families of those violent participants. A lot of times with kids, you just see them and you shake your head. It's so heartbreaking. But hopefully, all the wounded will pull through. Okay, I got to do a little bit of a mea culpa, not full today. Not a full mea culpa. Maybe an M-E, I think it's spelled mea, M-E-A. A mea, not the full culpa. Referring when Trump blurted out at a rally that if NATO didn't pay their way and learn to protect themselves, that if they were attacked by another country, would United States come and defend them? And Trump said, no. Now, you didn't stop there. I could see him playing hardball with these guys. You got to with these folks. But when he said, I would encourage Russia to do whatever the hell they want, that's pretty much his exact words. That's where I just like cringed. Because I want to tell you right now, I'm supporting Trump. The alternative, I can't go with. We have 4 years of Trump to examine him, his policies and all that. So that doesn't mean I'm not going to support him. But dadgummit, I'm not going to put hickeys on his rear end either. He knows that. When he came here to work on this program, him, Michael Cohen, Don Jr. was here, Ivanka, and I made it clear to them I didn't have public funds to give them. We could put infrastructure in to do this project they wanted to do. And Trump, I got pressure left and right to give Trump everything he wanted to do a project that he didn't have triggers on, whether he could, or he insisted on having situations where at any time he could pull up roots and leave. That was unacceptable to me. I'm not going to give you all of these incentives and encourage everybody else to do that, Mr. Trump. We want you here. We want your project here. Love the brand. Be great for Fresno. But I've got a job to do, and I can't have that caveat in the deal. Well, I became enemy. They went after and got people in the community, calling my office, them trying to pressure me, and I expected that. He did everything, but he never crossed the line. He pushed the envelope. He played hardball business. Okay, hardball business with me. He wound up, the housing crisis started because the golf course was actually a housing deal. That's where all the money was going to be made. And so he left the project, and I'll talk more about that because Michael Cohen asked me for something else to keep Trump there, but it was not a starter. But I'm not enamored with Trump, and I am really getting sick and tired of hearing, especially on the left, but some people on the right, people I really admire, moderate Republicans. You know, Mitt Romney. What has happened to you, Mitt? And it's all of these folks. Again, NBC, ABC, CNN, MSN, the periodicals, all the online magazines, Washington Post, New York Times, The Guardian, Atlantic, all on. Talking about, and otherwise smart people like Van Jones. I don't agree with him. He was a smart guy. Jake Tapper, all of this. Saying that if Trump were not in the picture, all of us good Republicans, and you're a good Republican if you're not MAGA. Well, you ask the question, okay, let's take that premise. What is in your mind left, woke left, center Republicans, all of you all who are anti-Trump, never Trumpers? What part of the MAGA principles and beliefs are you against? First of all, in just a moment, I'm going to say you shouldn't label them MAGA as if the MAGA movement came up with them. Are you against secure borders? Are you against, or do you support, maybe it's better put that way, foreign wars with America's interest nowhere involved, and they become endless wars until you tuck your tail between your legs and surrender, like Afghanistan and Vietnam, and you can go on and on. Iraq. If you don't support that, or you're MAGA. If you say we shouldn't spend more than we take in, it's called a budget. We're taught that in economics 1.0 in high school, some in junior high. Because if you continue to spend more than you take in, you will eventually go broke and lose all the good things you have, including your house and your car and whatever. Okay? Because you believe in that? Do you believe that as egregious as a crime that one cop did, even though there's been cops that misbehave, there's no doubt, but the vast majority of them go to work doing their job to protect us, everyone. And because one cop put his knee on a fella's neck and that individual tragically died, that you should defund, take the money away, and weaken police protection all over the country. And by the way, you don't consult the neighborhoods who depend on that police protection the most, our poorer communities, which never, by the way, from the get-go, never supported defund the police, but you would never see it if you listen to all of those news outlets I mentioned. All you would hear was Trump somehow was behind Derek Chauvin putting his knee on George Floyd's neck and killing him. If these are basic fundamentals of conservatism that were existent and adhered to and believed in by a large segment of our society, at least half, it should be more because it's all common sense, that existed during the Reagan administration and it existed during the Carter administration. Well, what do you say, that Carter was a Democrat? Yeah. But Carter got defeated by a landslide because Reagan came in with a pro-defense, but don't start wars, strength through power, secure borders, lower taxes, lower inflation, strong police presence, and building up poor neighborhoods. You go all the way back, John Kennedy, Dwight Eisenhower, all the way back, the conservative thought to our founding fathers. These principles of national security, strong national defense, secure borders, sound, reasonable, common sense fiscal policies that support capitalism. You know what capitalism is? People define that as some evil. Capitalism means if you're born a nobody in this country, you have a pathway to become a somebody because of capitalism. We have this show going around because of capitalism. Socialism and communism does not foster innovation, the innovation that's necessary to have new discoveries, whether it be in technology or agriculture or anything, because they stifle the individual's desire to better him or herself. I can go from working the fields out here, my dad working minimum wage, me riding a tractor, no family connections, no nepotism that could help me get out of there at all. But I worked hard. I got a football scholarship. I got to go to college. And by and large, kept my nose clean. Did some things I regret, but kept my nose clean. Worked hard. And I got to live out 14 dreams. That little Okie kid out there. Thomas Sowell, the little black kid, raised in the South and in New York City, in the middle of New York City, back in the 40s, 50s, becoming the most renowned economist in the country. Ben Carson, going through a very tough upbringing as a young black child, becoming the world's most renowned brain surgeon. Go on and on. That's what capitalism is. But you'll hear the left define it as just simply greed. When they say capitalism, they want the first image to come in your head, images to be Jeff Bezos, Zuckerberg, Musk. They don't want you to see, when you say capitalism, Thomas Sowell, Ben Carson, old Alan Autry, and a lot of you out there who came from very humble beginnings, or your parents did, or grandparents. The Okies here in the San Joaquin Valley started dirt poor. Now many of them who worked that land own the land that they worked because they worked hard and they had the freedom. And capitalism allowed it. All capitalism means is you have something, some product or some service that somebody's willing to pay for. That's all. That's what capitalism means. Yet the left has demonized it because the basic tenet, now listen up here. This is really important. I'm not the brightest chrome on the bumper, but please listen to what I'm about to say now. Because truly our country, future of our country could center around how you answer this or how you grasp this or don't grasp it. As much as free speech is important to liberty and how it's anathema to Marxism, how religion is so important, how faith is so important to our country and religious freedom to our country and to freedom, as I said, and liberty. How it is anathema, it's abhorrent to Marxism because you're to worship the state. You can't put any entity above the state. Stalin got rid of God, it's an atheist system. It's not. I'm not Alex Jones. Just do a little research. It is what it is. That's what's being taught at Harvard, Cornell, Brown, Yale. This love of Marxism. Here's the thing about Marxism that is so destructive. Because you destroy an economy, you have a failing state. You nurture an economy, you have a successful state with people employed and a chance to better themselves. Okay? Karl Marx himself said this. It's not about free speech. They'll control all of that. They want control of it. But the centerpiece, the foundation of his system is not that. The destruction, elimination of faith. It's not that. The number one thing Marxism has to accomplish, or it cannot be successful in its goal to control the people and tell the people what they need, and the people not get the right to tell them, Karl Marx and the system, what they need. Government controlling every aspect of your life. The key component is you have to get rid of private property. I'm going to say it again. The basic, fundamental, indispensable component of Marxism, that if you don't have it, you don't have pure Marxism, and it just simply exposes itself and falls away. You cannot have private property. When you take away, what do they call the American dream? One of the biggest components, we see how far away the capitalism from Marxism is, as far as East is from the West. The American dream, still to this day, major component of it, there's a lot about being in a free country that you want and desire and that's available to you if you adopt that system and work hard. But one of the major components, at least me growing up, was home ownership. We rented everywhere. We never hardly bought anything out. I mean, thank God for the layaway plan at Penny's. Pants, baseball glove we put on layaway. Some of you remember that. You paid it off bit by bit. We rented. And we were getting, my dad was just got access to a government grant, was going to help him build a house. And it would have been the only house that we would have ownership. But he died, 62, before we'd have that. But owning a home, to own your car, to have some possessions that are yours, that you worked hard for. First, they demonize that in Marxism. And when they've demonized you, and they first go after the ones who are the job producers, the ones that have used the capitalist system to rise up above, create a business that has hired a bunch of other people. They say, let us take over that business. After that hard-working person used capitalism to build it, let us take over and watch us destroy it. Because they believe in just giving the worker whatever. They don't know how to run a business. It's not part of private partnership, private ownership. It's not part of their system. So when they take control of it, they don't. Just look at Stalin in Russia. His people starved because he took over all the farms, ran these farmers who knew how to farm out of business, and sent these bureaucrats in there to run it, and they couldn't grow anything. They didn't even grow a stalk of corn. All of this stuff here, this phone, good, bad, and the ugly, is because of capitalism. Somebody made some money going up. People were hired on assembly lines to make this stuff. There has to be a profit for that individual to take that big a chance with their money to keep investing to grow their business. So don't demonize the rich man. There's a lot of good rich men. Remember, my dad told me, he's a farm laborer. He says, son, I'm not going to have nothing against a rich man because I can't remember time I got a job from a poor one. And that's why it's who you are. You act a fool and you happen to be rich, or you do bad things with your money. But Marxism did not develop that pacemaker that your daddy has that keeps him alive so you can have fun with him and see him and hug him and kiss him. Capitalism made that happen. Okay? That dialysis machine that keeps people alive and a quality of life still going for our loved ones. That's capitalism. That car you've always wanted. That's capitalism. Marxism, communism, socialism is incapable of producing that. How do I know that? Look at Cuba. They all have education, free education, but there's no jobs there. And they blame it all on an embargo by the United States. You know that Cuba has about 10, 15 trading partners? And we even trade with them. They got to pay cash to trade with the United States, but we trade with them. There's no meaningful embargo of goods to Cuba. Their system is not constructed to allow prosperity to happen. So they have succeeded, though, in lowering the expectations of their people to such a degree they're like abused spouses, abused children. It becomes all they know. So they stay there because they're afraid of the unknown. At least they're familiar with getting a ration of food. They're familiar with given the government everything they earn. They're familiar with just giving the minimal basics of life and being told, shut up and be happy you got that because what little bit I gave you, I can take away. And then where are you going to go? Because there's nobody hiring in Havana, if you haven't noticed, because the inflation is so high. In fact, we have been, my biggest urge is we run out of time, about 49 seconds. Just Google, and don't just take Wikipedia. Go into do Thomas Sowell's books on capitalism, on the economy. It's understandable. You won't get lost in a bunch of graphs. And it's called Economics Made Easy or something. Basic Economics is the name of it. Go online, get that book. It explains it where even old Bubba here can understand it, all right? And it is a real eye-opener, and that's why the left and the Marxists do not want you to come within 100 miles of that book because it exposes them for what they are, a failed system that's trying literally to impose its will on this country. That's why we have to push back. That's why I'm going to vote for Trump with all the warts and all. Folks, 4 seconds. I don't hear the music coming. I'm looking at it. Will I hear the music? Will Phil have synced it up? I don't think so. I don't hear the music. I don't hear Roy and Dale. That's what happens. I'm in the studio all alone. So they rigged this thing up to when my clock goes to zero that Roy and Dale would be playing. But they're not. But I'm going to have to sign off because time has run out. God bless you. God bless America. And just do your best and let God do the rest, and it's going to turn out the way it's supposed to. Dadgum, I love y'all. And God willing, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye now.